So we need to unpack a couple of things there. First of all, I think we need to bust a myth. Why did the seller have that value at 100 if you're got a BPO that now says it's 70? Where did they come up with that 100? Are they just inflating that, trying to screw me over?
Ooh.
Good question. First, they're probably going to go to their BPO that they used when they bought the loan.
Right.
So depending on the age of it, you might have one that's from 22, from 21, from 20. It could even be older than that.
Yeah.
If they have the assets in their systems, they may not order BPOs every 6 months, and
Right.
they'll go right to a Zillow value or or any other type of internet value.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they're using that, the Zillow or internet, they know that the likelihood of the BPO coming in lower is very strong.
For sure. And having been on the seller side, no, they're not trying to screw you over. No, of course not.
No.
They're trying to get a deal done, but this is the information that they had, and it's probably 2 or 3 years old. Sometime when they bought the loan. So it's not somebody trying to pull the wool over your eyes or anything like that. It's just it's old information.
Sometimes they don't want to spend the money to update it either. You know, BPO is $100. Maybe they don't want to spend $100 on all their assets to get a brand new updated BPO.
Yeah.
Some of the questions.
Let me add this one here. So sometimes they don't order a BPO because the equity could be so far above the legal balance. They're thinking, why do I need to order a BPO?
That's true.
Doesn't matter.
On the other side of that, sometimes if the old BPO is, let's say, 200,000 above the legal, and the new BPO comes back where there's only now 100,000 above the legal, the buyer wants to get a lower price, where realistically, there is no discount there because you're still well above what you figured to collect in the first place.
Yeah. So then the other one I wanted to just talk about for a second here is the taxes. So again, my experience, and Dave, you guys can both chime in on this, but my experience is I will go and run a title search, and I'll find out that there's taxes that maybe the seller didn't have on the spreadsheet. If it's $1,000 different, if it means that I'm going to have to pay an extra $1,000, I am not even going to mention it to the seller.
Sure.
I am not even going to bring it up. I'm not going to try to, cause any waves here. I can get the deal done, and it's going to cost me an extra $1,000. If $1,000 is going to hold you back from doing that deal,
yeah. But then again, if you come back and you see $20,000 in back taxes, you have all the ability to come back and counter that back and get dollar for dollar on the taxes, because you're gonna have to pay that tax bill.
For sure, $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 extra dollars, so that's different. But $1,000 or $750 or something like that.
Yeah, I guess I would show that to the client and say, "Listen, here's what I found on my report. What should I do with it?"
Yeah,
let them open-ended.
Let them tell you. You're not saying, you're not telling them that you're going to go lower, but they may say, "Oh, that's great. You know what? We'll take it off the funding."
Yeah, let them negotiate themselves. I like that.
Although Nathan,
that's good.
Nathan, we can't do that now with you. You just gave it away.
I tend to just say, you know what? For the sake of the deal, for the sake of the relationship, I'll eat the $1,000.
Yeah.
Because I would rather be known as the guy that closes than the guy that keeps bringing back all these little piddly problems that are going to get in the way of the deal getting done.
Relationship. You're creating a relationship.
Some quick questions we had online, and I'll answer them really quickly. Ola asked, what states is best to buy a non-performing note? That is a very big, open, broad question. There is no quote unquote bad states. There are states with laws, some with debt licenses you have to be sure you're careful of. It's the pricing you're paying. We've bought deals where in states I don't like for really good pricing, and it made it a great deal. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to answer that. Rich asked a question, if the property is free and clear and you present the offer, how do you determine the value on what you present the seller to create a note with them? So Rich, we're not really talking about creating a note. We're talking about buying the note that's already existing, right? That's a little bit different from the creative finance, which we'll get into in a little bit. We're on the side of buying the note versus creating the note. Now, if we foreclose on them and take an REO back, we can create a note, but we're not looking to push the borrower out. We're looking to actually buy from the bank the debt that's on the books and transfer to our name and own the debt and collect a mortgage payment from them or debt payment from them. right? So we're not in the idea of creating that, working with the borrower. We're working with the borrower after we buy the debt, after we own it from the bank. And we use a servicer like SN Servicing with Pollio's from to manage it like a property manager in the landlord space world. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys.
On the
Good
state
question.
question, you can always look up non-judicial states, and then
Yes.
and also they will show you the timeline it takes, and even a cost timeline for each of those states in foreclosure. So if you could find states that are 3-month foreclosure periods and it's only 2,500 to foreclose, that's what I use when I start to model out my pricing.
Yeah. Each state has different rules and laws and timeframes. If you really want to get granular like that, I would suggest January 9th, join us on Tuesdays as we start our advanced class. We're going to talk about building out that bid calculator, because I think if what we're seeing, David, is a lot of people, even when we were at the conference last month, who are saying we only buy performing notes. And when we ask the question, what happens if it defaults? Their answer is, well, I only buy performing, so I'm not worried about not performing. So it's really crucial. You know how a non-performing calculator works, what happens in different states, the timeline for each state, the cost for every state in generality. So if you're interested in learning more about that, join us on January 9th, or send us an email. We'll hook you up. So one of the things we're gonna transition here. What we're seeing a lot of, and I'm sure you have too, is the non-traditional residential notes for sale that we've all been accustomed to for over a decade now. And we're seeing raw land, vacant land. We're seeing wrap notes. We're seeing partials. Talk a little bit about what you've been seeing as inventory. Are you seeing more of these land, vacant land, raw land notes and wrap notes? Have you seen more of that? And what's your opinion on them? And what do you think buyers or sellers are looking for on those?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a mix of product these days. And right now, we are seeing the consistent pools of first lien non-performers. So we do have, I'm going to say we probably have about a 200 loan steady flow every month of that. And we're seeing specialty portfolios. Like right now, we've got a pool of 88 land loans, which, I guess the real term should be raw land loans. And it's a product for someone that is looking really to collect cash flow, because they're performing, and they're a certain product that you'd have to understand that's a 0 interest rate, but you're buying them in a low 60 purchase price.
Oof,
So
nice.
there is a yield there.
Yeah.
Now, depending on how the timing of the terms of the assets, what that yield would be. So we're seeing that type of product. We're seeing the same type of product that might have a 14, 15% interest rate, that of course would trade for a higher number. We are seeing seller finance notes, which the ones that I called right now, to me, are the ones that we have listed are business purpose loans. So it's a sense where people are not there's money on there's cash on the sideline. Instead of going out and maybe buying the NPLs, looking for those deals, they're now moving the cash into these seller finance business purpose loans, which are attractive
more
loans.
short term?
For short term, yeah. Short term. Which are attractive loans because if someone is only getting a low teen or a 9 or a 10 return, these type of loans can get you close to a 14, 15% yield. So
those are nice. Yeah.
I'm still seeing a few deals here and there of second liens. We don't put it on the trading desk, but we do see a lot of the scratch and dent product. And so
non-QMs and scratch and dents, that's a big field right now. Because all these seller finance notes are non-QMs, right? Because the fact of the structure the way they are. So non-QM just means that there's a non-bank originated kind of asset that there may be one little QFA, maybe something just that Fannie won't buy for certain reasons, that kind of stuff. So there's a bunch of parameters. Are you guys seeing things like reverse mortgages and wrap notes? But I don't think wrap notes you guys are getting involved with, but reverse mortgages, right? Where the borrower may have deceased and they're selling those non-performing wrap notes, reverse notes.
Just started seeing that. So the last two portfolios I had probably had about maybe 5 or 10% of the pool was reverse mortgages. I just put out one today where if you look at the tape, it's pretty obvious when you see $1 is the P&I payment that that's the way that they denote it's a reverse mortgage. I don't think I'm going to see much of that, to be honest with you. And we don't really kind of look for it or buy it ourselves, just because we don't service it. It's just not an asset that we've ever been comfortable with servicing. And there is a good market for it. The guys, the big guys like the Gitsits that are buying these type of portfolios, they're doing really well with them. So I wish that we could be, somehow intrigued to get on that side too. But we've kind of stayed away from it.
We've tried having them come on our show. They're not allowed to. We try to get Cameron to come on. He's a dupe.
Sure.
Just curious, how come you guys don't service those? We talked about reverse mortgages a few weeks ago, and we talked about some servicers do, some servicers don't. So how come you guys don't? We could only speculate. So
yeah, I think it's a little bit different for us. The CFP, because of our size, we are looked at by the CFPB quite a bit. So we really do have to follow a lot of rules and regulations and timelines and procedures that a lot of other servicers don't have to, because they're not big enough that they're being followed. So there's a lot of legality in the estate part of that we really want to stay away from.
Okay. Interesting.
So one thing we mentioned in the quote unquote green room before we got live was partials. You guys are servicing or bringing partials to the availability in the servicing world. Are you guys seeing any kind of inventory about buying or selling partials?
Haven't seen any of it yet. I've had the questions, would we list partials on the trading desk? So that's kind of what spurred when we were at the Note Expo. The group kind of got together and said, we really should look further into this. So I'll say probably by the end of January, we'll have a good direction where we want to go with it. I know we definitely want to service, and we are servicing some right now on the partial side, but I think there's a couple of rules, the type of partial that it is that we have to follow right now. So, but I'll have a better idea at the end of January. We're going to have an executive meeting in Baton Rouge, and so we'll kind of pin down what we want to do with the partial side, because I know there's buyers and I know there's sellers. So.
And I think, seconds have decreased. The partial world has increased to make up for that, because some people don't have the cash, or they have a Roth IRA of 6,500 and they want to park it somewhere. And, it's a low cost to get into a lot of partials sometimes. And it's attractive, right? Especially a second lien partial, even cheaper kind of idea. And partials are, for those who don't know, it's just you're buying a string of payments out of a whole. So you may buy, 12 months of payments out of 360. Those kind of parameters. I would definitely go back. We've had a webinar on partials versus hypothecations to learn about what partials are. And there's different ways to structure a partial as a buyer and a seller. It's not just a clean cut. Questions like, what happens when the partial defaults? How is it handled? And that's typically a conversation between the buyer and the seller to come to terms of what the exit strategy would be. But that's a great way for those who want to begin. You kind of get a helpful hand from the seller, because they typically will jump in if a note defaults. But awesome.
That seems like a very good product for someone that is on the sideline, hesitant to jump in, because I would expect the person that you bought the partial from is probably there to educate you on what's going on with the entire note itself, and how they got it, how they priced it, and how it goes through the servicing side too.
Absolutely.